we got a trailer for the new Star Trek show. What are you laughing at?
I'm just trying to make you laugh.
Okay. So we,
Sorry.
we got a trailer for the new Star Trek show. Star Trek
Yes.
Discovery comes
Hmm.
out this fall. I believe the pilot episode is going to be available on television. And then
Yeah.
after that, if you want to keep watching, you're going to have to get CBS's streaming service.
CBS All Access, I believe it's called. Yeah.
So we both took a look at this trailer, and I think we're among the majority of Star Trek fans, and we're not so optimistic about it.
Yeah.
Dave, on the other hand, is optimistic. I kind of wish he was here right now.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll throw his 2 cents in next time he's on, but I'll let you start. Actually, go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's a prequel, and I don't get why we're like slowly backing away from where we've already been. It looks like a cross between the JJ universe and Enterprise. And Enterprise isn't known as being one of the more successful series, so I don't get why they're trying to do that again. It's supposed to take place before Kirk.
10 years. Yep.
Mm.
10 years before.
It just seems odd. Like, you have a built-in audience already that would be willing to pay to get that subscription service just to see another show like The Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine. Like, why wouldn't you continue in that vein?
Yeah, I agree. They tried it first with Enterprise. At the time, no, it didn't do very well. Obviously, JJ's movies have also done prequels. I am done seeing what supposedly has happened before. I would rather see something, even if it's only 10 years after the events of Nemesis. I want to go into the future, not the past. One of my big problems with that is it looks nothing like how you would think it to look only 10 years prior to Kirk and the first voyage of the original series. It looks way too futuristic. The way the ship looks, the uniforms, nothing looks right.
Yeah, the uniforms look a lot like the Enterprise uniforms, which happened, I don't know how long before Kirk. Like, it was the first starship.
Oh man, I should know this. How long does Enterprise take before
It doesn't take place so long to where, like, the characters could have interacted with each other at some point in history,
correct.
but a significant amount of time. It would have been nice to see a little more color in the uniforms instead of being just like that navy blue. It looks like they're gonna try and make it more of like an action drama, like something like Marvel's Agents of Shield, or all these shows that are out.
I mean,
nowadays.
that's the trend lately. Yeah, that's the trend lately. I mean, they have to, or they feel they have to follow suit with that.
Now, when Enterprise came out, I didn't mind it being kind of a prequel to the original series. I thought, okay, well, that's neat. That's something new that they can try by showing us what came before Kirk, how the Federation came to be, or its beginnings anyway. I never got to finish Enterprise. I think it's probably still on Netflix.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to finish that sometime. I think I got maybe season 3, the beginning of season 3. It wasn't a horrible show. I think one of my main problems with it when it first aired is, besides not feeling like the other Star Trek shows, I had a hard time keeping up with it because CBS was terrible. Actually, I think at that point it's UPN.
UPN.
Yeah. So UPN, I don't know what UPN was like in other areas of the country, but here in the Metro Detroit area, half the time you went to watch Star Trek, the Pistons were on. And that got super annoying. And then also when that came out, it was right about when I first started my first job at Blockbuster. And, I couldn't help it. If I was scheduled to work, I had to miss it. And
yeah.
Back then, if you wanted to tape something, if you wanted to record something, there were no DVRs. You had to get a videotape and set up a recording.
Right.
And it wasn't all that convenient to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I for a while, Dave and I, when it first came out, Dave would record them and then like watch them, and then he would bring it over and we'd watch them together. I would go over his house and watch them. So there was a period of time where I was actually watching them probably like the day after or something, or that weekend when we had time, like we wouldn't have been in school or whatever, but going to his house on the weekends and watching that week's episode. And then I kind of started falling behind and didn't really watch them all. Finally I watched them all. He let me borrow them DVD, and then I was actually going through them again on Netflix to rewatch. I've seen every series, start to finish, including the animated series.
Okay,
But
since you've seen them all, like, go ahead and rank them for me. Like, start with your favorite one, what score you
okay,
give it, and then keep going down till you get to the last one.
okay. I mean, the Next Generation is probably going to be my favorite because that's the one I grew up on. That's the one I watched as a kid. That's the one I have the most nostalgia for. However, I think as an actual show, Deep Space Nine might have had the most compelling stories and arcs with their characters. They did really cool things with. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
Jerk. They did really cool things with like setting up, like, what in hindsight I look at Next Generation and thought, man, if they could have written some stories like that where like certain events from this episode, 10 episodes down the line, something from that calls back. Like there was a lot of recurring themes and things like that. So I think DS9 might have been the best written series.
If I remember right, I think DS9 kind of came out as Next Generation was kind of starting to wrap things up a little bit.
Yeah, basically.
Like there was only a season or two left of Next Generation when the DS9 started. Yeah.
I think though, if you look at it, when Next Generation and DS9 overlapped, and then DS9 and Voyager overlapped.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me? Yeah. And then I think Voyager actually ended, then Enterprise started. Those are the only two that didn't overlap.
I've gone back and I've watched all three of those series. I've only seen all of DS9 once. I remember when it was on, I didn't like the idea of it.
I didn't either. I didn't give it time of day back then.
Station. I want to see them exploring. Like, how's it going to be entertaining if it's always in the same spot? Well, I should have probably watched it. I remember some of the religious stuff was kind of throwing me off too. Like, it didn't feel Star Trek-y to me. But after,
there was a lot about the Bajoran.
After I went back and I heard them describe them as wormhole aliens and all that, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense then. Like, these are just aliens that have interacted with this planet.
Yeah,
for centuries. Yeah, I think that Next Generation started off kind of cheesy, like the original series. And
absolutely, it was an 80s version of the original series, essentially.
And by the time that DS9 rolled around, they had just started working on like improving the quality of Next Generation.
Well, you've I'm sure most people have heard the term jumping the shark.
Yes.
That comes from an episode, for those that don't know, of Happy Days, where Fonzie literally jumps a shark on skis. And the term is used nowadays to represent when a show tries some big ratings push or something crazy to try to get people to be interested in the show again. They've jumped the shark. Well, I guess there's another term that's not as widely known, but it's called growing the beard. And if you look at the Next Generation, Riker is shaved in the first season, but in the second season and on, he has a beard. And that term is supposed to represent when a show finally kind of finds its footing and starts getting good. They are growing the beard. Now, I still think, although season 2 was better than season 1, to me, it really didn't start getting really good to me about season 3.
I would say probably even later than that, like season 4 or 5.
Yeah, but I mean, it was getting better. I mean, season 2 was better than 1. 3 was better than 2. But Gene Roddenberry had some, I think he created a great show, but he had a lot of stuff that he was really about that it just doesn't, like, he was really big into this humanist agenda about how, in the future, like, basically we'll have put all our problems aside to have a common goal. So they basically, you can watch a lot of interviews with the writers where they talked about, like, he wouldn't want the crew to have any conflict with one another. And they were saying, like, well, how do you write a show that's a sci-fi drama where none of the main characters have tension with each other? It had to be all tensions with other people that we encounter because they're too small-minded.
Well, Gene Roddenberry, I think he actually started writing for like radio shows back when radio was still popular, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and he grew up through the 50s and a lot of the Cold War, and everybody was afraid that the world was going to explode between the United States and the Soviet Union. So that's why we get so many, like, during the classic age of sci-fi, a lot of the stories revolve around us being our own worst enemies, and, we're going to blow each other up if we all don't coexist and get along. that's probably a theme that just stuck with him just because of the era he lived through.
Yeah, that could be, but regardless, they say that once Gene Roddenberry passed away,
Like Rick
that's when
Berman definitely put some conflict in there, like DS9 and Voyager.
right. And like a lot of them will even say that once he passed away, that basically that's when the writers were really able to start exercising more muscles and really start writing some compelling stories and things going on. But yeah, DS9 was very different because right from the get-go, it was the Bajorans that didn't like the Federation being involved. They weren't part of the Federation, but
Yeah,
they were in,
both DS9 and Voyager were heavy, especially towards the beginning of each series. And as far as the crew's not getting along.
Yeah. So I do think that DS9 probably has some of the best story arcs and things like that. However, I'm just not I didn't hook with the characters themselves as much as the Next Generation crew. You know what I mean? So I think the Next Generation crew has much better characters, but I think DS9 has much better stories.
So far, your rank is number 1 is Next Gen, number 2 is DS9.
I think so. Then after that, probably maybe Enterprise. The original series, there's a handful of episodes that are really great, but there's a lot of them that are really bad. Like right off the top of my head, I can think of like The Ultimate Computer, Court Martial, some of my favorites from the original series. It's just,
it's hard.
I guess.
Like, what can you get out of that? I mean, it's 60s cheese.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think the ones that I've kind of just named there, and some of the other ones I can't think of off the top of my head.
He sees the man on the wing of the plane, and oh no, that's the wrong series. Sorry,
that was Twilight Zone. That was Twilight Zone. Yeah, but yeah, that was Terror at 20,000 Feet, by the way. One of the better episodes of that. But anyway, no, like Court Martial was a great episode about. Well, it doesn't matter what's about. I'll get into that later. We should do something about that, but like not best TOS episodes. But there were some really good episodes that did some really interesting things, but a lot of them, they were just really silly stuff, and it just didn't work.
Like the people with like that, like they're half black, half white, right?
Yeah, the one thing I will say that's interesting about that particular episode is the one guy, he was white on the left and black on the right, and the other guy was total opposite. He was black on the left and white on the right, and basically
they weren't very subtle about their message in that one, were they?
No, they weren't. But for the time and what was going on, I guess it was kind of important.
That's one thing about Star Trek. Like even though the show is set in future, in space, like they try and take things that are happening in the modern day.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to look though. You got as cheesy as the original Star Trek was, but you got to look at what was happening in America at that time. You had, tensions between the, black and white people. You had what was going on with us in Russia, and, just what was, we weren't exactly
that's why
friendly with the Japanese.
The American, the Russian, the Chinese guy.
He puts people on there, and they did still kind of write Kirk as the leader, but still they weren't like servants. They weren't just serving him his food. They were
almost
maids.
Equals. Just the only thing that separated them was the rank.
Yeah, but exactly. They were all bridge officers. They were all senior officers, and he put them, where, they're doing important jobs. You got, a Russian, a Japanese, a black woman, a Scots. You got all these people working together, and that was what he was going for. And at the time, I think it was really important for what it was able to do at that time. And it was very gutsy.
Did you say Japanese? He was Japanese?
Yes. Okay. Sulu is supposed to be Japanese.
Okay, yeah. Whoops, I think I said Chinese. Forgive me.
Sulu's Japanese. Obviously, even though I can never say his last name right. Walter
Koenig.
Okay. He's obviously not
not Cronkite.
Yeah, I know what you're doing. He's not obviously really Russian, but his character was Russian, and all that stuff. So
you mean you couldn't tell with that amazing accent?
Yes.
Driving the Wessel around?
Yeah. But anyway, so like this Next Generation was doing a lot more about like social, especially in the early episodes, early seasons, like social classes and
So what's your least favorite then? So if Enterprise is number 3.
maybe it's like, and like I said, it's not that I rank the original as so low. It's just that it just didn't have as many good episodes. I mean, there's just so few episodes of the original. I definitely know, and
the shortest run time.
well, yeah, it was
amount of episodes, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your point of view, it's 79 or 80. There was one episode. There's 80 if you count the one episode that was used as a 2-part episode as flashbacks. And you can watch that. It's called The Menagerie. That's the one with Captain Pike. They ended up using that. What are you laughing at?
Just I've seen a lot of Captain Pike references like from that show. Like the new Captain Pike in the movies isn't the same as he is in that show.
Yeah.
And I think South Park has done parodies of Captain Pike, and so has Futurama.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, so most people count it as 79, but technically you can watch The Menagerie as an episode itself. And you could say that's like an 80th episode if you want. But yeah, it's just there's so few episodes that are really all that great, even though it's the show that started it all. But yeah, I mean, Voyager, it's like, I don't know, after a while, like they just didn't have a good villain. Like they had this one villain called the Herosians, and they were almost like the Predator. They were this like hunter people, and they were real big about, the game, the sport of hunting. But then they did this dumb thing where they basically just neutered them, and like they took away everything that was cool and kind of scary and intimidating about them.
Well, when they first showed that alien race, they were actually like giants. They were a couple feet bigger.
Yes, yeah, that was another thing. They made them look humongous, and that was one thing that made them look really cool. They were all armored and all that kind of stuff. And then like
the episode where they took over the ship and then used the holodeck to kill the crew over and over.
Exactly. That was the episode that really ruined it for me, because they seemed so cool and scary and intimidating first, and then it was like now they're playing these little mind games by making the crew think they're in a different time period than they really were, to find out how they handle death. And I was just like, no, you're a warrior race. You should just be killing them or trying to.
Like a quota of they have to meet of episodes that are heavily involved with the holodeck, or at least between TNG and Voyager. It wasn't as bad in DS9. DS9 didn't have the holodeck hardly at all.
No, yeah.
But like I noticed like TNG and Voyager, like those two, like they have to sneak in like 1 or 2 holodeck episodes per season or something like that.
Yeah, and in a way though, it was kind of cool because you could do something totally different, because you could have on the holodeck where it's like, 1930s New York, or a Sherlock Holmes novel or something like that. It was kind of cool once in a while. Voyager had to do it because they were out in the Delta Quadrant. They were like 60 years or something or whatever away from Earth. So to have them interact with anything normal
I think I go, I'm not going to say in the opposite order of you, but I would put probably Voyager at my number 1.
Okay. I believe that's how Dave feels about it too.
Yeah. And I admit it has issues. Like, I think a lot of people liked it better when 7 and 9 showed up, but I didn't like it as much because it seemed like after the first season that she was in there, the show became only about her and Captain Janeway.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. Yeah.
Not all the time, but like it felt that way a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too. They neutered the Borg too. Everything cool that that first contact had set up with the Borg, Voyager just neutered them.
Well, Voyager did, yeah. Like by the end of the show, the Borg were far less of a threat than before the show.
Yeah, if you can team up with the Borg, one, you had a race that was more powerful than the Borg. Species, 8742 or whatever they were, and the fact that they were so much more powerful than the Borg that the Borg actually teamed up with the Voyager crew to combat them. Like it's like
I got mixed feelings on that, because I kind of like the idea that Captain Janeway had the guts to make deals with the Borg, or attempt to make deals with the Borg in order to get her crew home. Like that's how dedicated she was.
Right, but I'm talking before that they had to the Borg had to team up with the Voyager crew just to defeat species 8473 or whatever they were called, because they were that bad that the Borg couldn't deal with them themselves. That was before she made the deal to help get them home sooner.
Yeah, I think I would have liked the idea of that species. Like they have biological ships that are somehow resistant to the Borg. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it. But the problem with that the Borg had is that they're nanobots. They're what's the word I'm looking for?
Nanobots, nanotechnology. I don't. Yeah.
What do they infect people with?
Nanites.
Nanites are from Mystery Science Theater.
Okay, I don't know.
Anyway, they couldn't assimilate species 8472. That's it. Because they came
My
from
number changes every time I see them.
Yeah, they came from
sorry
fluidic space. Like they started going kind of crazy with the science there, which I kind of liked. I like that there's somebody who's kind of resistant to the Borg, and then they weren't necessarily the bad guys. Like they wanted you to think that they were worse than the Borg at first, but no, they were just another species. And Captain Janeway having to make tough decisions made a few that ended up wiping out a few races. She wasn't the best captain, but you kind of have to give her a little bit of leeway for some of the stuff she did because they were in such a unique situation. To me, Voyager had some of my favorite characters. Like the Next Generation characters are all classics for sure. But as far as like some of my favorite characters go, Tuvok might be my favorite character of all time. And that might be an odd choice for some people. I just love him. He's such a jerk. And as much as he pretends like he doesn't have any feelings towards anybody, he hates Neelix. Or at least he does at first. Like he even creates a holodeck program so he can kill Neelix because he hates him that much.
See, I don't even remember that.
Yeah, well, there was a time where there was a serial killer on the ship. And Tuvok stopped the serial killer by doing a mind meld, which was a bad idea, but like that was his answer for a lot of things. He didn't make the best decisions either.
Like some of that murderous rage went into him or something?
Yeah, some of that rottenness got into Tuvok. So one of the things he did to calm that side of him would be going to the holodeck and killing Neelix to release some of that pressure. Neelix is a good character. Some people found him really annoying. I thought he was fine. I thought his makeup and all that stuff, he looked great.
What about Tuvix?
That brings me to another point of why I really like Voyager. Some of the episodes were so messed up. Like you can watch an episode and like if it were a Next Generation episode, it would have been like, oh, we found a way to split them and turn them back into who they were.
Yeah.
And then that would have happened and that would have been it. But on Voyager, what happened was these two characters merged, Tuvok and Neelix. They decided to call this new being decided to call itself Tuvix.
Yeah.
So the whole episode they're working on trying to find a way to get them separated back to how they were, back to normal. And Tuvix just so happens to have the good qualities of both of them while leaving all the bad qualities out. And everybody just loves Tuvix.
Yeah. Except
for one person. I don't want to get too deep into it, but they finally find a way to split them back up to their old selves. And, some people are like, it'd be funny if we just left him the way he was because he's so much better now. And then they tell Tuvix, hey, we did it. We can separate you. You're going to become Tuvok and Neelix again. And then Tuvix says, I don't want to die. And everybody's like, whoa, we didn't even think of that. Like he's a life form. In order to get Tuvok and Neelix back, we have to kill Tuvix. And like, wow, that's just such a tough decision.
Yeah.
Voyager had some of that stuff. And I thought that was like just really good writing. I enjoyed it. After that, I mean, it might even be a tie. That and Next Generation. DS9 was good. I haven't seen enough of the original series, or at least not since I was a kid, to really have an opinion on which is better, that or Enterprise, which I haven't seen all of either. So yeah, I can't really consider the original series or Enterprise because I haven't seen all of either of them, and it's been a while since I've seen them.
Enterprise, there was this thing going on, like they tried to do a little bit of a DS9 with like the story arcs. And in that one, it was all about this, or at least at first, it was all about the temporal Cold War. And what you find out is in the future, there's somebody, they never really quite reveal who it is wanting to alter events in the past. So basically, they're only able to communicate with the past. So basically, they can find.
Yeah, I remember that being kind of a story arc, just stretching over multiple episodes, and like then go away for an episode or two and then come back.
Yeah, but then there's I don't know, like if it was 50 or 60 years from that future, there was these other people that had perfected time travel, so they're actually able to send people back in time. So this guy is trying to help protect the timeline. He's actually physically there.
Yeah,
While
I
the other
remember
guy,
seeing that, and like they don't know who to trust. Like, which one do we believe? And then
yes.
every time they showed the one that we're assuming has to be the bad guy, I think he wanted to destroy Enterprise and the Federation. Like he's always like blurry or shadowed, like you can't see who it is, making it seem like there was going to be some kind of big reveal probably later on.
Yeah, he's displayed as a silhouette on a projector. Like you can't tell who he is, but he's giving this race called the Suliban information, and he's also giving them enhancements to do certain things. Like they can like one of the things they can do is like camouflage with their backgrounds or see
Okay,
in the
so that
dark.
wasn't a natural ability because I pictured them being kind of like chameleons anyway.
Yeah, it would have seemed cool if they could have did some of it, but no. Like one of them was they could crawl on the walls and scenes like Spider-Man. One of them is they could like flatten their body and like slide under cracks of the doors or something like that, or like twist their arm in really weird ways to like unlatch something from the other side. And um, anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. That whole storyline, I kind of would have liked to seen that explored more. Then they went into this whole thing about the Zindi arc, and they tried to later
Now,
connect
is
the
that
two.
like a planet where they had like an ape race and a insect race?
Yeah, yeah, and a aquatic race, which I thought that in itself was so boring to me.
I think right when that story started, was that like the beginning of season 3?
Somewhere in there, I can't remember
It
exactly
was
when.
right there where I kind of like stopped watching it. I don't know if I got busy or what,
Yeah,
but like that's where I left off at.
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, they tried to do this thing where like basically there's different races. One's a primate, one's an insectoid, one's a reptilian, one's an aquatic, one's a bird, which they're extinct, I guess. And anyway, what I thought was boring about that is they were all like earth animals. Like I was like, okay, you have this opportunity now to do something really crazy looking, and this one basically looks like a lizard. This one basically looks like a bug. This one look,
That's funny.
it's
That's
just
one of
boring.
my complaints, one of my criticisms about
Star Trek as a
Avatar.
whole. Oh, okay.
Like Avatar came out and it was like this nice looking world. Everything was like CG. The native race were these giant blue people that had basically USB ports for tails. It was kind of interesting, but like all the animals on there, like they were kind of like earth animals just with extra
Yeah.
legs. Like it's a panther with
Yeah, the
6
horses
legs.
had extra legs, the wolf
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So
No, I
like
can see that.
as creative as the movie had the potential to be and was, like they really kind of just meh.
Yeah.
We'll make a creature on this planet. What'll it be like? Oh, I don't know, a dragon. Okay.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
Yeah.
But get this. 4 legs.
We've never seen that before.
No? Okay.
Uh,
6 legs.
and a
And
USB port.
antenna. Huh? I guess. Five digits? No, this one has 7 digits.
6.5.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, like it was creative, but it could have been more creative in
Yeah, they
like
could
some
have
of
done
the
more.
design.
Yeah, that's my big beef with Star Trek as a whole. I mean, almost every race has a little something here or
Mhm.
here or
Yeah, it's like,
here.
oh, they're obviously an alien race because forehead is different.
Yeah. And I understand why, like, well, especially in the original series, I can excuse the most. Um, I don't know if he's actually being sincere when he says this or if this is just him exaggerating, but Shatner has once said in an interview that what most modern television shows have as a budget for like the food for the cast and crew, where they set up while they're setting up different shots or takes or whatever, what the people eat. He says that that's what the entire original series budget was.
I believe him. I can see how that sounds like exaggeration, but like a low budget show back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so part of it is I know that it was kind of low budget and it was always getting in, it was always having threat of cancellation. And obviously got canceled once, got brought back, got canceled again.
Now, isn't it Lucille Ball that kind of like kept the show going?
I want to say that was her, not production company. Yeah, her name was involved. Yeah, it was in there somewhere. I'm trying to remember what her exact role was, but anyway, the other thing is obviously
it was like her personally, like
Oh,
She was fighting to keep
well,
the
the
show
letter
going.
writing campaign is the big thing
Okay.
because it got canceled after I think it was season 2. It got canceled, and fans wrote a lot of letters. They got it brought back for another season, and they ended up canceling it again. But anyway, and like anyway, it was also the '60s, so it's like what the can't do as much, and like. Well, I'm not saying you couldn't, but basically, again, a low budget TV show of the '60s can't do really extravagant stuff.
There were a few sci-fi shows back then around that time, like all out at the same time. I'm trying to think like what sets Star Trek aside, because we had Village of the Giants, Lost in Space, probably a few other ones I can't think of right now, but like it seems like there was a small group of those and they had cult followings, but Star Trek is the one that kind of was able to live on. And I think, well, maybe that was partially the movies.
Well, personally, what I think made Star Trek stand out from other shows of its time was it was trying to do something. If you look at Lost in Space, it was very, there was one episode about the carrot people. Literally, they were people in carrot suits.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I
that
think
ended
Star
up being
Trek.
directed towards kids a little bit more at some point.
Yeah, I think because Star Trek was trying. I mean, again, it had some really cheesy episodes too, of course, but it was trying for the most part to try to sound like, okay, we got this crazy technology. Let's at least try to make something that sounds somewhat plausible. That if this existed, we would be able to do that.
Right.
So
And
they tried
that's something that comes up all the time too, is the technology from Star Trek and how like we're actually recreating some of it. Like some of it is becoming reality and we're lurching towards it.
Yeah, I watched a documentary a few years ago at John's, and it was really interesting. It was called, I think, How Star Trek Changed the World. And there was stuff I never even realized that we have. And this was, probably the 2002 or 3 when we watched this, even before like the iPhone and all that, where it was like, wow, I never even thought of that. It was a pretty interesting show. If I could find it, I'd like to watch it again. But anyway.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I wonder if John still has it. Did you say he recorded it?
Yeah, I think he recorded it back in the day off some, DVR or something. I highly doubt he has it still.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'll have to ask him. I'm gonna see him tomorrow. So
yeah, so anyway, like Star Trek has never done a whole lot with like cool looking aliens. I mean, here and there, yes, but never as much as that. That's one thing I love about Star Wars.
Star Wars, yep.
Yeah, Star Wars always had really, for the most part, had really interesting looking aliens. Star Trek did not.
Yeah, it's like every alien species, or a lot of them, not all of them, most of them in Star Trek are humanoid and look very similar to us, with like very few exceptions, like
something on the forehead, the nose, the chin, the ears. Yeah.
And that was most of it. Like you don't see a lot of like 3-armed slime monsters in Star Trek.
I mean, and I get it. It'd be hard to, I don't know how they could even done that, even in the 90s.
Yeah, a lot of that has to be budget.
Sure. But I think all in all, I think Star Trek has better story and better kinds of stories they can tell. Star Wars, and I'm not trying to knock Star Wars. I do like Star Wars as well. It's kind of a one kind of story. Star Trek can do a sci-fi story. They can do a military drama story or a military action story.
Branch out. Like, we saw probably the closest Star Wars will get to Star Trek with the prequels when they tried to go all political, because a lot of Star Trek is political stuff or democracy.
There's a lot of taking something that's contemporary and dressing up with science fiction and trying to send a message to us about something.
Right, and that didn't work when they did that with the prequels.
Wait, when you say the prequels, are you talking Star Wars prequels?
Star Wars prequels, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Star Trek has a lot more different kinds of stories it can tell, and I appreciate that. It keeps it more interesting.
All right, so you watched the trailer for the new one. Let's talk about the new one a little bit more.
So we already kind of talked a little bit. I'm tired of prequels. I want to see something that takes place after the events of Nemesis, whether it's 2 years after or 20 or 200. I don't care. I just want to see Star Trek move forward again. Also, it to me brings up the problem of the technology looks too modern, the ships look too modern, the uniforms, nothing looks like 10 years before the original series. And I have
the lens flares.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. So basically all that. And then I have a big problem with trying to say that those people were the Klingons in this trailer. The aliens that they showed are supposed to be Klingons, and I have a big problem with that.
Yeah, that sounds like anybody listening might think that kind of sounds like a dumb complaint, like, oh, who cares if they change the way they look a little bit. But I was looking at the trailer, the comments for the trailer on the Star Trek YouTube page, and the likes were like 20,000 likes and 10,000 dislikes. So like a third of the people that watched it didn't like it, and almost every comment was a negative one. And one of the comments that people are making is that they don't like the way the Klingons look. And yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that. Like, it doesn't bother me as much as some people.
Okay.
But I think people are looking for something they're more familiar with. They're not looking for all these changes that are coming, and the changes don't look exciting enough. I don't know who they're trying to get to buy their subscription service.
Yeah.
I mean, you already had a built-in audience. There's some negatives.
Dave is going to buy it, apparently.
Well, I'll go to Dave's house and maybe watch an episode. I'm not saying the series is going to be bad.
Yeah.
For all I know, it could be great. From what I've seen so far, I'm not interested enough to actually get the subscription service.
Yeah. So speaking to that, okay, so if I may, on the Klingons. So if you look at them, the original series, once again, they basically were humans. They put a little mustache and little goatees on them, and most of them had some face paint that kind of gave them this a little bit darker look. But other than that, they were humans. Now, come 1979, when the motion picture came out, that was the first. The Klingons were in it, but very briefly, and that's the first time they had their new look. They had like the sharp teeth.
It wasn't exactly like it was in Next Generation, but it was a lot more similar.
Yeah, and they had the forehead ridges. And we don't actually see the Klingons again in Star Trek II. The only thing we see of them is the ships, and it wasn't even real ships. It was the Kobayashi Maru test.
And we see them in the third one.
Yes, we see them in the third one. If you look at them in the third one, they actually don't look a lot like they did in the motion picture. The ridges are there, but they're much more subtle. In fact, their foreheads are a little smoother, I would say, than what they looked like in the motion picture. And then every movie changes it subtly.
Like B'Elanna Torres from Voyager, she was half Klingon, so her ridges were less prominent.
And I could be totally fine with that. But I'm saying, like, if you look at like Worf, and they changed him a lot. If you look at Worf every season, the ridges get more and more pronounced. Now, you could say that's something maybe a maturing in males. We can kind of make up little explanations for why that might be. I like to think of it as just
progress and makeup.
Well,
I don't really notice that stuff as much. Like, I'll notice it, but like, I just figure it looks better this way, so they're starting to do it this way.
Right, but I'm saying if we were trying to think of an explanation.
Yeah. Well, they did come up with an explanation in DS9, right? And Enterprise.
Enterprise explained exactly why the Klingons look like humans in the original series.
DS9 acknowledged it, and then Enterprise explained it. Okay.
Yes, but I'm just saying the fact that when you look at Worf, like, he's very subtle ridges, and then it gets a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. Maybe that's something as they mature, like they become more pronounced. I mean, I'm just throwing something out there. But these Klingons in the Discovery, they don't even look like Klingons. They don't even dress like, they don't have the typical garb. Like the uniforms it looks like something out of The Fifth Element to me.
They look like the Klingons from the JJ universe, right? Or did you not see that one?
No, I didn't see the movie, but I did see what the Klingons looked like, which I didn't like that look either, but shocker. I do think they look even different from that one. Maybe somewhat, but they look different to me still.
No, they look similar to me, but it's been a long time since I've seen that Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
If you had to pick between the JJ Klingons and these Klingons, which one would you pick?
As which one I would rather be official Klingons?
Yeah,
I don't even know. I will say I saw some concept art for what the Klingons could have looked like in JJ's movie, and there was 3 different like concept art heads that I saw, and there was 2 of them that actually looked pretty good. One of them, in fact, I thought, wow, if they could have just taken this aspect of this one and this aspect of that one and put them together, that would be a pretty decent looking Klingon.
Well, here's a question. I think this actually is supposed to take place in the same universe as Next
I believe
Generation
it's
and
the Prime
original.
universe, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's technically.
So we only get like a brief shot of those Klingons. What if they were special, like genetically engineered Klingons or something? Because
I guess. I mean,
this takes place after Enterprise, right? And in Enterprise, they looked like normal Klingons at first, or I can't.
in Enterprise, they look like the Klingons that we know. They're ridged Klingons up until the point where the infection happens, which is how
So
they explain why they looked like humans in.
this could be
Um,
some form of infected Klingon,
sure, we could say that, but I also would think
just to give the benefit of a doubt here.
sure, but I was also thinking too, like really, you could say if this were real, not all Klingons were necessarily affected because they were going out and conquering other worlds,
Right.
basically putting up a flag there. So, like, let's say there's certain pockets of Klingons that
Mhm.
have are occupying another planet or out there exploring, they wouldn't have gotten the disease. So theoretically, there should be a mix of the two
Right.
by Kirk's day. Some that would look like us, some that would look like themselves.
And if you wanted to compare it to like reality, like people all don't look the same.
True, true.
So, I mean, it could be they're from a different region of.
I guess, but still, like I just because and like I said, okay, if like I said, if you look at the Klingons in Star Trek 3, then look at the you don't see many in Star Trek 4, but the one you see in Star Trek 4, he looks a little different than Star Trek 5, and 6 and so on. They all have subtle variations of it, but they all in all, you can still tell they're kind of the same family. To me, these things look nothing like them at all. To me, like I just don't see it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
there's some
if you just
forehead.
show me a picture of both the Klingons from the movie and these Klingons, I would have said, "Oh, it's a new. What are these guys? I've never seen these before. I have no idea."
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like I said, it's just the fact of how much more futuristic it looks from what time period it's supposed to be taking place
Right.
in. It's just I'm tired of seeing prequels. I want to see the future. I want to see so that maybe there's a chance that just if oh hey we're meeting up with this other ship and oh who's on this ship, Worf, let's see Worf for half a second, just a cameo. Like why does everything got to be in the past? Also, I have a problem with that because it has more potential to mess up continuity error, to cause continuity errors with something that they already established. This happened this way. Now this is happening in the past, and they forget about that, and they say something or do something that shouldn't have happened that way. You know what I mean? There's just too much
Mhm.
potential for problems.
Well, yeah, that's when the series started getting better, like Next Generation, when they started being
Different.
paying more attention to continuity,
Well, one of the things I guess Gene was really adamant about at the time is he didn't want to see any original series aliens.
which is a shame.
Yeah, so like you notice you only see one Endorian in Next Generation. It's technically a holographic projection. He didn't really want to have Vulcans. He didn't want to have the Romulans, and he didn't want to have Klingons. And in fact, I guess Worf was not supposed to be a recurring character. He was only supposed to be a small part. I think. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not really interested. I'm not looking forward to it.
The dialogue in the trailer seems not Star Trek-ish to me. Like
Okay,
the movies don't seem like the Star Trek TV show. They're different. I acknowledge that. And that's fine for me. All the dialogue in this trailer just sounds like they're always worried about something. They're being over dramatic. And one of the things like that they did a lot in especially in those three shows from the 80s and 90s, like everybody stayed for the most part pretty calm. They had procedures. They were trained at how they were supposed to do their job. They all knew what they were doing. They followed orders for the most part,
hmm,
and like they handled everything mili- militarily.
okay.
I'm trying to say a different word here.
Military
My
esque. I don't know.
my mouth won't do it. Yes, no, that's not it. So but yeah, they had a set way of doing things, and
Sure,
it wouldn't always stick necessarily to that way, but like they had guidelines that they followed for the most part.
sure.
Everybody tended to stay calm. They followed the captain's orders and they resolved things. And this, it just seems like they're running around. Like you get that alien saying, "Oh, I was trained to sense death, and I sense it now." Like what is a giant canary?
Um,
I don't understand that. Like if it's taken out of context and he's just being dramatic, I guess that's one thing. But if he's being literal and he was designed to sense death, I don't understand how that happens.
well, the only, and trust me, I'm not trying to defend this show, but like I will say Counselor Troy could sense emotions, deception, fear, things like that. Even Spock in the motion picture, he talked about how he could sense
Yeah,
V'ger's.
there's races that have like psychic abilities
Sure.
and things like that, but to sense death is kind of a weird way to say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure. If Dave wants to really show me the show, I'll watch the episode.
If I can catch the pilot, I'm willing to check it out
Yeah.
and give it a chance. I mean, we might be wrong, but a lot of people feel the way we do where it looks bad. I mean, when I was looking at those comments, I should pull one up right now. I have the YouTube channel open right now. Wolverine says, "Stop changing the Klingons. They look horrible now." William Littleton says it's rare that you can tell the writing is crap just from the trailer. And just like it's filled with comments like that, and they all have thumbs up. So I don't know. A lot of people aren't too enthused about this.
Yeah. I don't know. It almost makes me feel like because all in all, the JJ movies has been successful by doing a prequel or something beforehand. It's like they're wanting to just keep up with that. Well, let's do something else that's prequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of wraps up our discussion on Star Trek Discovery here. There's no release date. Not that I know of anyway. I think it just says this fall.
Hey, that's the only thing I can say I like about it. Fall is my favorite time of year.